Hello and welcome to our Crochet Swatch Saturday. Today we are going to be talking about this very lovely yarn from Darn Good Yarn, Yarn of the Month Club. Now if you're not familiar with the Yarn of the Month Club, it is a really interesting company. Darn Good Yarn does recycled silk yarn, mostly from saris, which are those outfits that women in India wear quite often. And if you open the card up, you can actually see that they talk a little bit about your subscription goes towards helping out those in India and different things like that. And each month this changes a little bit, but this yarn is called Brigid's Hearth. And it is inspired by the Celtic goddess named Brigid. She's the goddess of fire, poetry, and healing. Brigid's Hearth is a DK weight yarn that blends warm, burnt orange, ember, cream, ash brown, and flickers of fiery red. This colorway evokes the glow of a sacred flame, perfect for stitching intention, warmth, and creativity into every project. So that's what the inspiration for this yarn is. And you can see there are several very luscious colors in there. Now, it is perfect for the fall, hence the reason I have the very fun, festive fall decor out here. And let's talk a little bit more about this yarn. It is definitely a DK weight yarn. Now, I do have to warn you, some of the yarns that I have seen come through for Darn Good Yarns, they list it at one weight and it is a very different weight. But this one is a pretty true DK weight yarn. It comes in a 50 gram, 150 yarn skein, and it is done up as a hank. So you're going to want to have a winder in order to get a cake, not a winder, a swift. And a winder to get a cake, or a swift, and you can make it into a ball. Hand wash only. Now, I have heard some people comment that this silk yarn has a tendency to bleed. So after I do up a couple of swatches, I'm actually going to do some washing on it and see how much the water changes colors. So we'll test that for you, and I will make sure to share that as well. This is no dye lot because it is hand dyed, which is also part of the reason a lot of times these hand dyed yarns do tend to bleed a little bit more than the machine dyed ones. And it uses a 5mm crochet hook, again made from recycled Sari yarn. So let's dive in. I have my trusty 5mm hook here, and it just happens to match. I was actually trying to find a hook that was slightly a different color so that it would stand out a little bit better. And the only other one that I have is really obnoxious and chunky, so we're going to go with this one. And let's find the beginning here. Now this feels like a fairly thin yarn for a 5mm, but in transparency, I have never used a silk yarn. So this should be a little bit interesting. I'm going to give myself a little bit more room here. Should be a little interesting on that sort of scale. Now we're going to start with our single crochets. And I almost need to get a ruler because as I'm talking to you doing these swatches, I never count. It's just not something that I can't talk and count at the same time. I don't know about you, but I don't have that ability. So if all of my swatches tend to be different sizes, that is totally why. See, and I started doing a double crochet there. I definitely am doing more projects right now that are double crochet. So I have to remember single crochet. Now the silk yarn, if you're not familiar, has some really fabulous properties. It is a very soft yarn. it has a tendency to have a little bit of a luster compared to like a flat cotton or a flat wool. There's definitely a little bit more sheen to it than your average wool yarn, and it is extremely breathable and temperature regulating, which means it is perfect no matter what time of year you want to wear it. So it's great for summer, it's great for winter, it's great all the time. Now, the downside is that most silk yarn is going to be thin and it is expensive. So if you want to give a silk yarn a try, then this recycled silk Sari yarn is a great option because the price point is going to be a lot lower than a straight silk yarn would be. Now, obviously, because it's recycled, there's going to be some variations in it. It's not going to be quite as luxurious as a straight silk yarn would be, but if you're on a budget and you want to try the yarn, then that's a great way to do it. Wow, you can already see how quickly these color changes come in and really add a lot of dimension to even this very small swatch that we're doing here. This would be really fun yarn to make our crochet pumpkins with because it would have so much different texture and dynamic to it. It would really make a fun one. But like I said, it is a DK weight, and a lot of times we do those pumpkins with a worsted weight or something that's going to give it a little more chunk to it. You know what? I'm going to actually switch here because this is definitely being really holy on me. So I'm going to switch to a 4mm crochet hook, and we're going to give that a try. Okay, so here we have the Tulip Enamo 4mm, and we're going to try it with this one because I think that this just had a bunch of holes in it, and I'm not sure that I like the 5mm. The one thing I have noticed on the Darn Good Yarn, it's a small company, and a lot of the suggestions that they give come out of India, and I think they do things a little bit different, and I think they don't quite understand how maybe we crochet here, so different things kind of come out. It's a little bit of a proverbial wild west when you get the Darn Good Yarn, but as I said, oh, you can see there where the stitches get much shorter. So let's keep going with the 4mm. I think it's probably going to be a much better size for this yarn. And as I was sharing, these are hand-dyed lots, so all of the yarn is limited edition, and they have very limited quantities. Like right now, I just kind of went on the website as I'm recording this, actually on October 1st, so it's not going to air until probably mid-October. And they had some yarn packs where you can buy this yarn, and it was on sale for $77 for a 10-pack. So that's $7.70 per skein. That is a really good price if you need to get 10. Now the regular price on that 10-pack was $200, which is what I would expect a hand-dyed yarn to, like this to be priced at $20 a skein. Now these are slightly smaller skeins, so but it's important to remember that this is silk yarn and it's hand dyed. So typically you're going to get a silk hand-dyed yarn at around 40 and up. So $20 for a slightly smaller skein is really within what I would consider the realm of average. And then if you actually purchase it on sale, you're getting a smoking deal. If, of course, you like this color. Because these are dyed for the Yarn of the Month clubs, they don't do it like a normal hand dye where they have a bunch of different colors and you can pick which one. It's a very small sort of niche kind of way that they work. Now they do carry a few other brands of yarn. Get out of my way. Like Malabrigo, but they don't carry a wide selection. So it's not going to be like, oh, you're going to go do 90% of your shopping on the Darn Good Yarn website. I just got a text message from my husband. He is out training my husky to behave better. And he asked me to go by the house, he said they're going by the house and I should look to see Willow's behavior, but I really can't because I'm in the middle of recording a video. This is how life works when you are a content creator. So, we're going to keep going here. Yeah, this is really fun. This makes such a neat kind of pattern. I'm going to do one more row since we sort of cheated and switched mid-row there. So I'm going to do one more row of the 4mm, but I definitely think a 4mm would be a much better hook for this. Possibly even a 3.5mm if you wanted a much tighter stitch pattern. But the 5mm, it gives you quite a loosey, wide open, more meshy kind of pattern. And of course, that all depends on the pattern that you're using it for. All right, let's finish this row up. Snip this baby off. And then sure we are. There we go. Those scissors are not cutting for me today. All right, there we go. That is really pretty. I generally don't tend to lean towards oranges, but I think that's a really, really pretty swatch, and I like a lot of things about it. All right, so we're going to set you over here. Oh, let's do a little bit of a drape test. With the single crochet, I think this has, a pretty decent drape. Now, this feels, actually, as it's worked up, it does have a little bit of a cottony feel to it. It's like it's hard to explain because it's got the cotton. It's got a little bit of a soft feel while still having that raw feel that cotton often does. So it's got a little bit of the dish texture-y kind of thing, but it's soft at the same time. So it's very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, quite unique, I think. Soft and dish texture-y at the same time. How does that work out? All right, roll around there. Now let's do some double crochets and see how those look worked up. I already have a couple of projects in mind for this. The first thing that I'm really thinking about doing is a t-shirt upcycle with it. Now I have a t-shirt that it's mostly black and it has some white and yellow lettering on it. And I already paired it with it and it looks great. So it gives it a little bit of that pop. And the yellow sort of, this cream color right in here really picks up the white and the yellow from that t-shirt print. So that should be a lot of fun. And then with whatever I have left over, I definitely want to make a crochet pumpkin with this, because I just think that the colors in this would make a stunning crochet pumpkin. And we'll have to see if I opt to pair it with something or what I would do to make it a little bit more kind of chunky. Maybe if I have enough, I'll do 2 skeins. Whoops, look at that. Can you see that right there? That's a little splitty. Right in here. I went between that. Now, I don't think I have ever kind of experienced, I mean, I'm a little surprised that that's split in that way, because it did not seem that the yarn would be splitty at all. So that's a little bit of a surprise for me. Now, as we've talked about many times on these Swatch Saturdays, if you're left-handed versus right-handed, I would love to know your different experience. So obviously you can see I'm a southpaw and crochet left-handed. I would love to know, when I consider something splitty, if you find it to be splitty too. I want to kind of do that research and say, is there really a right-handed versus left-handed difference there? So let me know when I share that something's splitty and you've used the same yarn. Let me know what handed you are, what hand you crochet with, and whether or not you found it splitty. And we'll do a little informal testing on that to see what the feedback is. I actually might try posting something on Reddit to say, hey, you know, if you're left-handed versus right-handed, list the yarns that you think are splitty, or something like that, just to kind of compare and get a wider selection of individuals overall. Yeah, I gotta say, I really think this is a very pretty colorway worked up. I think it's actually prettier worked up. I mean, I don't lean towards the oranges. I said that. Yes, you said that. It's okay. You can say it again. I generally don't lean towards the oranges, but I just think that this is really pretty. Sometimes when you go outside your comfort zone, you get rewarded. I gotta share, my husband does love to go shopping with me, like for all things. Sometimes he doesn't look like he enjoys it. He looks like he's bored to tears. But when we go clothing shopping, he picks out things that I would never pick out for myself. And often those are the things that I end up getting complimented on the most. So I like to take him because he gets me out of my comfort zone in a really good way. All right, we are about finished with this row. There we go. There you can see the double crochet. It's still really pretty. I mean, it just has those little flecks of color throughout, and it's very, very pretty. Let's try a frog. Ribbit, 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 ribbit. Yeah, not a problem. I would give this 10 out of 10 on the Frogability, for sure. All right, so tell me what you would make with this yarn. I'd love to hear from you, and I would love to know whether or not you've ever used the recycled silk Sari yarn from Darn Good Yarns, and what your thoughts and opinions are. Even if it's in a different colorway, they have different bases that they do. This is their DK recycled silk base, but they have worsted and they have all kinds of other things too. So let's go give this a wash and we will come back and see how it turned out. Okay, well, if you haven't, if you couldn't guess, we have tested the water bleeding, sort of, this is the wet swatch. And so you can kind of see right now the colors are still pretty vibrant overall. Let's get you a little closer here. You can see, obviously, once you wet it before it dries, it looks a little matted. But you can see the colors are still pretty vibrant. So, did it bleed? Well, let's take a look. This is our normal water. This is our swatched water. Absolutely 100% we had some bleeding. And this was in there, I would say, for maybe 10 minutes. And I did add a tiny bit of soap to it. So that is what we got. So that's just something to keep in mind, especially if you're going to use this with another color yarn and you're concerned about that bleeding. So let's look at one other thing. I dried this swatch just a little bit to soak up some of the water, and this is the paper towel that I dried it on. So you can see those kind of orangey spots on there. That's where the color was absorbed, the damp color was absorbed by the paper towel. So we may have to add a new category on our Swatch Saturdays for Did It Bleed? Because on this one we certainly would have to say, yes, it bled. Here's the number that we give it out of 10, and this will let you know whether or not I think that this yarn is worth using. But I want to know from you. Do you think this yarn is worth using? Let me know in the comments below. Hey Farah, frog us out of here.